My name is Bhatia, and this is the class of BHIC 133, and we are going to cover Unit 16 and Unit 17 in this class. As these are the last units of Block 4 of BHIC 133. In this unit, we start to read about Bhakti tradition and Sufi tradition in Unit 16. As you all know, uh, Bhakti tradition started from South India, and Bhakti movement, uh, the Bhakti moves in North India a lot of things. And what about the emergence of Bhakti movement? And what were the political factors for the rise of Bhakti movement? What were the socio-economic factors for the rise of Bhakti movement? We are going to study about all these things. As you all know, Bhakti as a religious concept means devotional surrender to a personally conceived supreme god for attaining salvation. If a person want to attain salvation, then should self uh, he or she should pray to God for several things. Just like the origin of this doctrine has been traced to both the Brahminical and Buddhist traditions of ancient India and to various scriptures such as Bhagavad Gita. But it was for the first time in South India between 7th and 10th century, the Bhakti grew from a mere religious doctrine into a popular movement based on religious equality, broad-based social participations. And next is Sufism. In this unit, we will cover Sufism also. Sufism or Tasawwuf. Sufism is the name for various mystical tendencies and movements in Islam. And what was the aim of Sufism? The aim of Sufism at establishing direct communication between God and man through personal experience of mystery, which lies within Islam. The religious milieu of India when Islam reached this subcontinent presents a phase where Buddhism had lost its supremacy. Brahmanism was trying to consolidate its position by compromising with Buddhist doctrines as well as with pre-Aryan practices also. A lot of scholars had given a lot of description about Bhakti movement and the Sufi movement, just like Al-Biruni, Amir Khusro, Abul Fazl, Dara Shikoh. They tried to understand Hinduism and made valuable attempts to enhance Muslim understanding of Hinduism by their own works and by translating Sanskrit works into Persian. A lot of scholars had done a lot of things to make you understand about the Bhakti and the Sufi tradition. And what was the background of Bhakti movement in South India? South India, the Shaiva Nainar saints and Vaishnava Alvar saints means two terms were given in this, like Nainar and Alvar. The followers of Nainar were known as the followers of Shiva were known as Nainar, and the followers of Vishnu were known as Alvar. The saints of South India spread the doctrine of Bhakti movement among different sections of society, irrespective of caste and gender during the period between 7th century and 10th century. Some of these saints came from lower caste and some were women. The saint poet preached bhakti in an intense devotional manner and promoted religious egalitarianism. They dispensed with ritual and traversed the region several times, singing, dancing, and advocating bhakti. The Alvar and Nainar saints used the Tamil language, not Sanskrit, used Tamil language for preaching and composing devotional songs. All these features gave the movement a popular character. For the first time, Bhakti acquired a popular base. In South India, Bhakti saints were critical of Buddhism, critical of Jainism, who enjoyed a privileged status at the courts of South Indian kings at that time. They won over many adherents of Buddhism and Jainism, both of which now had become rigid and formal religions. Since the ideological and social foundations of caste system were not questioned by the South Indian saint poets, the Bhakti movement of South, in the long run, strengthened it rather than weakening it. But despite these limitations, the South Indian Bhakti movement in its heyday succeeded in championing the cause of religious equality. Consequently, the Brahmins had to accept the right of the low caste to preach, to have access to Bhakti as a mode of worship, and to have access even to Vedas. Because at ancient time, at the time of ancient, we have discussed a lot about the Varna system, where the Shudras have no right to say something in front of the people, to say something, to speak about themselves in front of the all people. They had no right. But nowadays, with the help of Bhakti movement, the Shudras came in front of the people. Now, Bhakti and the South Indian Acharyas. When the popularity of Bhakti movement in South India was on the wane, the doctrine of Bhakti was defended at the philosophical level by a series of brilliant Vaishnava Brahman scholars. Means Brahman scholars means Acharyas. Ramanuja, 11th century, was first among them. Ramanuja. He gave philosophical justification for Bhakti. He tried to establish a careful balance between orthodox Brahmanism and popular bhakti, which was open to all. Though he did not support the idea of the lower caste having access to the Vedas, he advocated bhakti as a mode of worship accessible to all, including the Shudras and even the outcast. While propagating bhakti, he did not observe caste distinctions and even tried to eradicate untouchability. Nimbarkacharya, a Telugu Brahmin, he is believed to have been a younger Contemporary of Ramanuja means the same time both gurus were giving preachings to the people. He spent most of his time in Vrindavan near Mathura in North India. He believed in total devotion to Krishna and Radha. Another South Indian Vaishnavite Bhakti philosopher was Madhavacharya. Madhav, who belonged to 13th century. Like Ramanuja, he did not dispute orthodox Brahminical restrictions on the Vedic study by the Shudras. Means they all, just like I'm giving you more example, Vallabha. Okay, Vallabhacharya, late 15th and early 16th century, he was also a acharya of Bhakti tradition. Since both of them they lived mostly in North India, like Ramanuja and Vallabhacharya. They both lived in North India during the Sultanate period and gave new orientation to Vaishnavite Bhakti. They will be discussed in the section dealing with North India. Next, we have discussed about the acharyas of Bhakti tradition. Now, the Bhakti movement in North India. Around during the Sultanate period, 13th to 15th century, many popular socio-religious movements in North and East India and Maharashtra emphasized on bhakti and religious equality were two common features of these movements: religious equality and bhakti. As has been pointed out, these two were also the features of South Indian Bhakti movement. Vaishnava Acharya in South India were also prevalent over there. For these reasons, many scholars believed that the Bhakti movement of Sultanate period were a resurgence of older Bhakti movement. They argue that there existed philosophical and ideological links between the two, either due to content or diffusion. Kabir Have you heard about the name of Kabir, Kabir Das? Kabir and other religious leaders of non-conformist monotheistic movements in North India are believed to have been the disciples of Ramananda. Means Ramananda was the guru of Kabir Das, and he accept the preachings, he accept the teachings of Ramananda in his life. Okay, and he is believed to have been connected with Ramanuja's philosophical order. Similar claims have been made that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya, the most significant figure of Vaishnava movement in Bengal, he belonged to philosophical school of Madhav. This movement is also believed to have been connected with Nimbarka's school because of its emphasis on Krishna Bhakti. The Bhakti movements of medieval India differed in many significant respects, not only for the older South Indian Bhakti movement, but also among themselves. Each one of them had its own religious entity. Either we are talking about North India or we are talking about South India. Both have similar identity in front of historical, cultural, and socio context. That's why the non-conformist movement based on popular monotheistic bhakti contained features that were essentially different from various Vaishnava bhakti movements. Like Kabir's notion of bhakti was not the same as that of medieval Vaishnava saints such as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Mirabai. Means Kabir was in the main believing of monotheist movement. Monotheist movement means the god has no any form. Okay, the god has no any statue, the god has no any idol, there is no idol worship in on behalf of Kabir's notion in the bhakti movement, because Kabir thought that the god has no any form, means formless god which we need to pray. Kabir's bhakti movement, popular monotheistic movement and Vaishnava Bhakti movement, both these movements arose in northern India at the same time. This is in the centuries following the establishment of Delhi Sultanate and advent of Islam in the part of country. For this reason, the rise of both the movement is quite often attributed to certain common causes such as influence of Islam or on Hinduism. This is so because the popular monotheistic movements arose and reached their peak in the Sultanate period, while the Vaishnava movements began in the Sultanate period but reached their climax during the Mughal period. Next thing, we are talking about emergence of Bhakti movement. How Bhakti movement emerged in socio-economic, political, and religious classes as political factors for the rise of Bhakti movement. Now, political factors for the rise of Bhakti movement. At the time of 10th to 14th century, we are talking about northern India and we are talking about southern India. At the time when Turkish conquest in India, because the socio-religious milieu was dominated by Rajput Brahmin alliance. The Turkish conquest brought the supremacy of this alliance to an end. The advent of Islam was the Turkish conquest also caused a setback to power and prestige commanded by the Brahmins. That's why the way was paved for the growth of non-conformist movement with anti-caste and anti-Brahminical ideology. The Brahmins had always made the people believe that the images and idols in the temples were not just the symbols of God, but were gods themselves, who possessed divine power and who could be influenced by them. The Turks deprived the Brahmins of their temple, wealth, and state patronage. That's why the Brahmins suffered both materially and ideologically. Both they were suffering at that time. Next is socio-economic factors. What were the socio-economic factors behind the rise of Bhakti movement? In the medieval India, the Bhakti movement represented the sentiments of common people against feudal oppression. According to this viewpoint, elements of revolutionary opposition to feudalism can be found in the poetry of the Bhakti saints, ranging from Kabir, Nanak, Chaitanya, and Tulsidas. It is in this case that sometimes the medieval Bhakti movements are seen as Indian counterpart of Protestant Reformation in Europe at the same time. Protestant Reformation means the advent of Martin Luther at the time of when the church was giving a lot of bad things in front of the people. On that day, the Martin Luther advent in Europe. This reformation is called Protestant Reformation. However, there is nothing in the poetry of Bhakti saints to suggest that, what to suggest that there is nothing. Okay, and it is in this sense that sometimes the medieval Bhakti movements are seen as Indian counterpart of Protestant Reformation. Basic principle of Orthodox Brahmanism. The more radical monotheistic saints rejected orthodox Brahminical religion altogether, but even did not call for the overthrow of state and the ruling class. This, however, does not mean that the Bhakti saints were indifferent to the living conditions of the people. Next is economic and social changes. With the advent of Bhakti movement, what were the economic and social changes at that time? Have you heard about Kabir, Nanak, Dhanna, Pipa? They all were religious saints of monotheistic movement. Monotheistic movement means believe in one God and there is no idol and there is no form of God in front of our eyes. They can be explained fully only in the context of certain significant socio-economic changes in the period following the British rule. The British ruling class and the the extraction of large agricultural surplus led to enormous concentration of resources in the hands of ruling class. The demands of this resource building class for manufactured goods, luxuries, and other necessaries led to the introduction of many new techniques and new craft on a large scale. That's why, in turn, led the expansion of the class of urban artisans in the 13th and 14th century. Means the urbanism and the classes in urban areas like artisans, they were attracted towards the monotheistic movement and with the help of urbanism. The main popular movements and their characteristics. Popular movements. The number one, monotheistic movement of North India. In monotheistic movement, Kabir, the time period of Kabir was 1440 to 1580. And Kabir was the earliest and undoubtedly the most powerful figure in the monotheistic movements. It began in 15th century. He belonged to a family of weavers, means Julaha, who were indigenous converts to Islam. He spent greater part of his life in Banaras. The monotheistic saint who succeeded him either claimed to his disciple or respectfully mentioned him. His works were included in six holy books, are are numbers than those of their monotheists. Next is Ravidas, the most probably belonged to the next to Kabir. He was a by class yes, and influenced by Kabir's ideas. Dhanna. Dhanna was 15th century Jat peasant from Rajasthan. Jat peasant. And other prominent saints of same period were Sen, Pipa. Sen was a barber and Pipa. Dadu Dayal. Dadu was also inspired by Kabir's doctrine. In his Bani, means in his speech, a collection of his hymns and poems, he regards Allah, Ram, and Govind as his spiritual teachers. Dadu's cosmology was and the stages of soul's pilgrimage carry Sufi influence. Okay. Next is we have studied about in NCRT. If we are talking about, and then there is Naths and yogis also entered into this Bhakti movement. Next is Sikhism. Guru Nanak preached his ideas much in the same way as Kabir and other monastics. But due to various developments later, his teaching led to emergence of mass religion Sikhism. The basic similarity of his teachings led to the emergence of mass religion, with his teachings similar to those of Kabir and those of other saints, and the basic ideological agreement between them makes him an integral part of monotheistic movement. He belonged to a caste of traders called Khatri and was born in village in Punjab known as Nankana Sahib. In his later life, he traveled widely to preach his ideas, to spread his ideas. Eventually, he settled in a place in Punjab, but now as a Dera Baba by the fifth Guru, Guru Arjan, in 1604. As Guru Nanak, we are going to study about the more things about Guru Nanak. Like his philosophy comprised of three basic elements. Three basic elements were the Guru and the Shabad and the Sangat. Means Guru means the personality and Shabad means ideology of that particular Guru and Sangat means an organization. Nanak evaluated and characterized and criticized the prevailing religious beliefs and attempted to establish a he became God and laid emphasis on having a true guru for revelation. But at the same time, Nanak did not hesitate in criticize the Sufis for leading a luxurious life. Nanak made an attempt to unify the Hindus and Muslims and certainly succeed in synthesize within his own teaching an essential concept of Hinduism and Islam. The religious book of Sikh was Guru Granth Sahib, means Adi Granth, was compiled by Guru Arjan Dev. This is known as Sikh Panth, Sikh community, and all these things. Next, common characteristic features. The teachings of all saints who are associated with the monotheistic movement have certain common features which give the movement its basic unity, just like number one, most of the monotheists belonged to the low caste, and they were aware that there existed a unity of ideas among themselves. Most of them were aware of each other's teaching and influences. In their verses, they mention each other and their predecessors in such a way as speaks of Redas as saint among saints. Redas, in his turn, respectfully mentioned the names of Kabir, Nam, Lochan, Dhanna, Sen, Pipa, Theistic. All the monotheists were influenced in one way or another and in varying ways by Vaishnava concepts. Nagpanthi movement, this was also the way of Vaishnava Bhakti saints, but there was one fundamental difference of perceptions. They all have called monotheists because they uncompromisingly believed in one God. Then the God of Nanak was incarnate, non incarnate, and formless means Nirankar, means eternal, means Akal, and ineffable means Alak. These type of things we have studied. Next point is the monotheists followed a path which was independent of both dominant religions of time like Hinduism and Islam. Means these both terms were using at that time Hinduism and Islam. They denied their allegiance to either of them and criticized the superstitions and criticized the orthodox elements of both of the religion. The monotheists composed their points in popular languages, Some of them used a language which was a mixture of different dialects spoken in various parts of North India. Dialects. The monotheists prefer this common language to their native dialects of their non-conformist ideas among the masses in various regions. Means they wanted to use that language which the people prefer to listen and the people prefer to understand all the things which were spoken by the religious saints. Most of the monotheist saints were not ascetics. They led worldly life and they were married, just like Gautam Buddha, just like Mahavir Swami, just like Guru Nanak Dev, just like Kabir Das. They all led worldly life and they all were married. They lived and preached among the people. They had aversion to and disdain for professional ascetics. They were also not like the medieval European Christian saints who were recognized as holy by the church. They were not like that. And their religious books were Bhagavad Gita, Adi Granth Sahib, like this. The monotheist saints traveled widely to propagate their beliefs, just like Namdev in 14th century saint from Maharashtra. He traveled as far as Punjab, where his teachings became so popular and became popular among the lower class. The idea of Kabir means all type of classes they entered inside the preaching of Kabir Das. Means Kabir was following the tradition in which all type of classes enter, lower class, upper class, and there is no discrimination and there is no any upper class and lower class feeling in their term. This is clear from the high position according to Kabir in the Sikh tradition and in Dadu Panth tradition of Rajasthan. Despite the widespread popularity that the teachings of monotheists enjoyed among the masses, the followers of each one of the major figures in the monotheist movement, like Kabir, like Raidas, like Nanak, they gradually organized themselves into exclusive sectarian order called Panth, such as Kabir Panthi, Raidas Panthi, Nanak Panthi, all like this. They used to uh, use these terms like this. Next is Veer Sheva Bhakti tradition in North India. Veer Sheva. Have you heard about Vasavanna? Have you heard about Veer Sheva? No, I'm going to tell you about this. Vaishnava Bhakti movement in North India. Vaishnava Bhakti means Alvar saints, means the followers who pray Vishnu. Ramayana was the most common of in North India during this period. Some of its ideas already been mentioned in 16.3 section. He belonged to the late 14th and 15th century. He lived in South India in early part of his life. He later settled in Banaras. He is considered to be the link between South Indian Bhakti tradition and North Indian Vaishnava tradition. Link between these two traditions. He deviated from the ideology and practice of earlier South Indian acharyas in three important respects. Just like he looked upon Ram and not Vishnu as object of bhakti. Ram was the supreme god who is to be adored with Sita. In this sense, he came to be regarded as the founder of Ram cult in North India within the framework of Vaishnava Bhakti tradition. Who? Ramananda. He preached in the language of common people, not in Sanskrit, to propagate the Ram cult. The most significant contribution to Vaishnava Bhakti was that he made Bhakti accessible to all irrespective of class. He greatly relaxed the caste rules in respect of religious and social matters. Though himself a Brahman, he took food with his low caste Vaishnava followers, who Ramananda. Another prominent Vaishnava preacher of Saraswati was Bhatia. 16th century. He was born in Banaras and founder of Pushti Marg, means the way of grace. He also came to be known as Vallabha Sampradaya, means Vallabha sect. He advocated Krishna Bhakti. Famous Krishna Bhakti saint poets, Surdas and seven other Krishna Bhakti poets belonging to the Ashtachap, who believed to have been the disciples of. Next is Vaishnava Bhakti movement in Bengal. Bengal. In many significant ways, the Vaishnava Bhakti in Bengal was different from North India and older South Bhakti movement. The sources which influenced it can be traced to two different traditions. Vaishnava Bhakti tradition of Bhagavad Puran with its glorification of Krishna Lila on the one hand, and Shajya Buddhist and Nath Panthi traditions to other. They all are different terms. The Vaishnava tradition was transmitted by various Bhakti poets belonging to Jayadev in 12th century, and Jayadev's Geet Govind was composed in Sanskrit. He also wrote songs in Maithili, Maithili dialect, which were later absorbed in Bengali Veer Vaishnava Bhakti tradition. These cults preached an easy and natural religion focusing on esoteric and emotional elements. Vaishnava Bhakti saints, poets such as Chandidas, Vidyapati, they came under the influence of these non-Vaishnava cults, though the Bhagavad tradition was always the major source of influence. Chaitanya. Next is Chaitanya. Chaitanya was the most prominent Vaishnava saint of Bengal. He popularized Krishna Bhakti in many parts of eastern India. He popularity, his popularity as a religious personality was so great that he was looked upon as an avatar of Krishna. The advent of Chaitanya marked the shifting of the focus of Bengal Vaishnava Bhakti from devotional literary compositions to a full-fledged reform movement with a broad social base. Chaitanya disregarded all distinctions of caste, all distinctions of creed, sex to give a particular popular base to Krishna Bhakti. Chaitanya did not give up traditional Brahminical values altogether. He did not question the authority of Brahmins and scriptures, all things. But Chaitanya's movement had a great impact on Bengali society. His disregard for caste distinction instead of singing promoted a sense of equality in Bengali life. And next is Gaudiya Vaishnavism. The Gaudiya Vaishnava movement and the Chaitanya movement, which derived its inspiration from the life and teachings of Chaitanya, had a tremendous impact on the social, religious, and cultural life of the people of Assam, Bengal, and Odisha. The people were not only influenced by his message but began to regard him as an incarnation of God. The social structure in pre-Chaitanya Bengal and Orissa was based on Varna Ashrama. The Shudras and lower castes were from various religious systems. Tantric creed predominate. Next is Bhakti movement in Maharashtra. In Maharashtra, like other Vaishnava Bhakti movements, the Maharashtra Bhakti tradition draw its basic inspiration from that of Bhagavad Puran. In addition, however, it was also influenced by Seva Nath Panthis, who were quite popular in lower class of Maharashtrian society during the 11th and 12th century and who composed their verses in Marathi. Jananeshwar was the pioneer of Bhakti saint of Maharashtra. He wrote an extensive commentary on Bhagavad Gita, popularly known as called Jananeshwari. This was one of the earliest works of Marathi literature and served as foundation of Bhakti ideology in Maharashtra. He was the author of many hymns called Abhangs. He taught that the only way to attain God was bhakti, and in bhakti there was no place for caste distinctions. Next is Namdev. Namdev belonged to a particular considered the link between Maharashtrian Bhakti movement and North Indian monotheistic movement. He lived in Pandharpur but traveled in North India, including Punjab also. His Bhakti songs have also been included in Adi Granth. In Maharashtra, Namdev is considered to be a part of Varkari tradition. But in North Indian monotheistic tradition, he is remembered as a Nirguna saint. Other prominent Bhakti saints of Maharashtra were Eknath and Tukaram. Next is Maratha Vaishnavism. The Maratha school of Vaishnavism or Bhagavad Dharma has a long history. By the close of 13th century, steady enrichment and vigor was imparted to Bhakti movement in Maharashtra by a number of poet saints. The most outstanding of these were Jananeshwar, a Brahmin who is considered to be the greatest exponent of Maratha Vaishnavism. The main features of Vaishnava religious devotion, anti-ritualism and anti-casteism in Maharashtra were similar to those of other non-conformist movements in North India. Vidhoba. Vithoba was the god of Varkari sect. Its followers were householders, they were performed pilgrimage twice in a year to the temple, Vithoba. Tukaram. Tukaram's teaching in the form of avangas or verses means dohas, which contribute the gatha. The Varkari Maratha saints developed a new method of religious instruction like Kirtan and Nirupana. Bhakti movement in other regions means Shaiva Bhakti flourished in Kashmir in 14th century. Most prominent of Shaiva Bhakti saints was woman Lal Dev. In Gujarat, Bhakti was preached by the Vallabha sect of Vallabhacharya and another important saint, Narasimha Mehta. In Assam, Shankar Deva introduced Bhakti both in Brahmaputra Valley as well as in Cooch Bihar. He was born in family of non-Brahmin Bhuyan chief. He became an ascetic during the later part of his life and is believed to have visited many places of pilgrimage in North and South India. They were known as the Bhakti saints. Feature of Sufi is word Sufi means Suf word is known as wool also. Mysticism is an offshoot of religion. All Islamic religious movement arose out the controversies about God's attributes and decrees and their impact on the universe. Religious and spiritual movements in Islam contain an element of political influence. According to analysis of Sheikh Waliullah, an 18th century scholar of India, Sufism finds justification in the esoteric aspects of Islam. Sufism means tasawwuf, is the name of various mystical tendencies and movements of Islam. Sufism is divided into four phases. The first began with the Prophet Muhammad and his companions and extended to time of Junaid of Baghdad. The Sufis during this period exclusively devoted themselves to prayer, means namaz, roza, means fasting, means zikr, means invoking God's name. They all were the five pillars. Just like sama means religious music. The all five pillars of Islam, they belong to that particular. Now the emphasis was laid upon the state of ecstasy which led to spiritual telepathy. In the fourth phase, the Sufis discovered the theory of five stages of descent from necessary being, like Wazid ul Wujud. It's from here that the of Wazid ul Wujud means a man who played an important role and decisive role in the history of Sufism was an Irani, Bayezid Bastami. Bayezid Bastami. He evolved the concept of fana. Fana means an inhalation. It implies that human attributes are annihilated through union with God. His mystical formula, Ana al Haq, I am the truth or God. His mystical formula became an important factor in the evolution of mystical ideas Bhatia and then in silsila. Many silsilas were formulated in the practice of deputing disciples to distant lands. They developed a number of Sufi orders or silsilas in a chain with each other in and outside India. All these orders had their specific characteristics, just like there were a number of features like which were common to all Sufi orders, such as number one, Sufism. It developed in Islamic world came to stress the importance of traversing the Sufi path. The disciple means murid. Murid progressed through the stages and states by practicing such spiritual exercises as self mortification, relocation of God's name, attain concentration, like this. They all means they all activities were doing where at Hospike. Hospike means Khanka. Khanka was the center of activities of Sufi order. It was a place where the Peer imparted spiritual training to his disciples. The popularity of the Khanka, the popularity of the Khanka and its capacity to attract disciples depended on the reputation of the Peer. The Khankas were supported by the endowment and the charity of the rulers of that particular time. Next is growth of Sufism in India. How Sufism grew in India. India not only provided a new pasture ground for the propagation of Sufi ideas, but also became the home of Sufis who, along with many other refugees, fled from those parts of Islamic world which had been conquered by the Mongols in 13th century. Sufism in India originally stemmed from the Sufi thought and the practice as it developed in various parts of Islamic world, especially in Iran and Central Asia. However, its subsequent development was influenced more Mughals in India. First one is Suhrawardi Silsila. The Surawardi Silsila was a major order of Sultanate period. Its founder in India was Sheikh Baharuddin Zakaria. He was a Khurasani and he was the disciple of Sheikh Shahabuddin Suhrawardi, who had initiated the Silsila in Baghdad and was directed by the latter to proceed to India. Sheikh Bahaduddin Zakaria, many other Khalifas were designated by Sheikh Shahabuddin Suhrawardi to spread Silsila in India. Made many disciples. He attached a langar to his khanka. He is said to have played an important role in the process of Islamization in Bengal. Next is the Chishti Silsila, very popular Silsila. The growth of Chishti Silsila in India during the Sultanate period took place in two phases. First phase ended with the death of Sheikh Nasiruddin in 1356, and the second phase is marked by its initial decline during the later part of 14th century, followed by a revival and expansion in various parts of country during the 15th and 16th century. They were the two phases. Next, the decline of Chishti order in Delhi during the later Tughlaq and Sayyid periods. Some scholars hold the view that the decline of Delhi as a center of Chishti order, Sheikh Moinuddin Chishti, we have heard about this, and this order was due to attitudes and policies of Sultan Muhammad Tughlaq. Sultan Muhammad Tughlaq. It must be pointed out that the Sultan was not opposed to the Sufis per they were compelled by the Sultan to accept state service, and moreover, Sufi activities in many khanqahs were restored after the death of Muhammad Tughlaq. Many successor Firoz Shah Tughlaq showered gifts on them. Delhi was left with no commanding Chishti figure after the death of Sheikh Nasiruddin in 1356. He died without appointing a spiritual successor. One of his chief disciple, Gesudra, left Delhi for the safer place in Deccan at the time of Temur invasion. That is the reason. That was the reason. In succession of Khwaja Bahauddin Naqshbandi, the founder of this order. From the beginning of mystics of this order laid stress upon observance of the law, means the Shariat. Shariat is a law governing body of Muslims and had emphatically denounced all biddat. Biddat means innovations, which had spoiled the purity of Islam. That's why it may be regarded as a reaction to the challenging ideas of upholders of. He wrote, the circulated that God was created the world could not be identified with his creatures. In almost all parts of India, the Sufis had established their centers, means the Sufis had established their khanqahs where spiritual discussions were held under the supervision of mystic preceptor, means peer, and between peer and murshid, peer and murids. The mystic discipline continued to progress till end of 17th century. Other Sufi orders. In addition to Chisti, Suravardi orders, there were some other, just like Firdausi, just like Qadiri and Sattari and Kalandari. They were also silsilas over there, which were introduced in India during this period. The Firdausi order was branch of Suravardi. The most prominent Sufi belonging to this Sheikh Qadiri silsila, Chishti silsila, Suhrawardi silsila, Kalandari silsila. They all silsilas were prevalent in India at the time of Sufism. Next is Mahadavi movement. Mahadavi movement means the hope of advent of deliverer. Mahdi goes back to tradition of Prophet Muhammad or his companions. The first person to lay claim to being a deliverer in the history of Islam was Muhammad al-Harafiya, son of Ali. Many Mahdis came after him, who were mainly concerned with the economic and political movements. Sayyid Muhammad of Jaunpur was the only Mahdi who did not carve political power but was only mainly interested in spiritualism and purifying Islam. The following mean renunciation of the world, company of the truthful, and the seclusion for mankind, resignation to the divine will, and the quest of the vision of God, distribution of 1/10 of income, constant jikr, migration means hijrat, behind the Chishti silsila became popular. The popularity of early Chishtis rose after their lifetime as the cult of saints began to develop in the later centuries around their shrines, means around their dargahs. The Sufi and Bhakti movement and cultural synthesis. They both are connected with the same thing, means the God is one and we should pray to God in Bhakti movement, we should pray to God in Sufi movement, and we should pray to God in Muslim religion. all religion, all movements, the main thing is the same. Next, we are talking about in our next unit. No, I'm not starting our next unit because the time is not more than 5 minutes. So let us recall about the unit 16. Means what things we have studied in unit 16 we can recall over here. Like the Bhakti movement of the Sultanate period represented the most widespread constellation, both interwoven and variegated of socio-religious movements in Indian history after the rise of heterodox movements of 6th century BC. Early Sufi saints came to India even before the establishment of Delhi Sultanate. The basic features of Sufism in India continue to be the same as they were in the Islamic world. In Islamic world, it developed into an organized movement during 10th to 12th centuries. During 12th and 13th century, they developed a number of Sufi orders or silsilas. Like in Islamic world, a number of Sufi orders became popular in India during the time of Sultanate. Of these, Surawardi and Chishti's order were more prominent. In India, the Chishti order became most popular among the masses. Sufis played a very important role in the social life of period. They did not involve with affairs, but we come across a number of cases where the Sufis accepted state patronage and got involved with the affairs of the state. The Khankas were the center of activity of Sufis and their disciples. Means they converse with each other, with whom each other, with the between two people, two type of people like Pir and Murids. The Murids came in Khanka and they discussed a lot of things in front of Pirs, their Pirs. Sufis in India continue to be affected by the developments of mystic ideas in contemporary Islamic world. In India, there was a regular interaction between Sufi and Bhakti movements. This interaction had a positive impact on social and cultural life during the Sultanate period. This incarnation, this interaction resulted in a cultural synthesis in the fields of art, in the fields of music and literature. Means how they pray to their God. They pray with the help of music. They pray with the help of sama, and they pray with the help of dances, form of dances. A lot of things they have done to please their gods. Khankas were the center where Pir and the Murshid meet with each other and they discuss a lot of things related to the particular people. Means the interaction between Chishti Sufi and Nath Panthi yogis during the Sultanate period is well established fact. The movement of Nath Panthi had attained considerable popularity in North India in 13th and 14th century. The Nath Panthi, the yogis, jogis, we can say, the khanas, leading with them on the nature of mysticism. The translation of yoga criticized into Persian from Sanskrit, even from the advent of Sufism in India, led to the adoption of many meditative practices of Sufis. The early Chishtis approved some of the ethical values of Nath Panthi yogis and their corporate way of life. Like the Chishtis, the Nath Panthis had opened their doors to all of caste distinctions. The common outlook of two popular movements provided a basis for mutual understanding between Muslims and non-Muslims. about Bhakti movement and Sufi movement. In Bhakti movement, starting with South India and they interact with East India and in India. In Bengal, in Punjab, in Maharashtra, we have studied a lot of things. They have discussed a lot of things related. We have discussed a lot of things related to Bhakti movement in all over the India. Like Guru Nanak Dev came into India to spread the knowledge, to spread the things in front of all. Like Mirabai, she also wanted to spread the messages, and she also wanted to spread the teachings of Krishna because she was a big devotee of Krishna to show all the things. We have studied a lot of things about Bhakti movement in India. And now we are going to stop this class. We are going to over this class. And in our next class, we will go to this block. Thank you. Have a nice day.